Thanks to the efforts of Frankie Vaughn, the Easter House estate now looks as if it is going to get a youth centre. It remains to be seen if that will end the violence. But for the mothers on the estate, talking with their MP Hugh Brown, there is no doubt that Easter House lacks a community heart. Showbiz personality or social worker, somehow Frankie Vaughn manages to combine the two. No one can accuse him of doing good by stealth. Yet those who thought that he would quickly drop his interest in Glasgow have been confounded. He has been back and back again.
Cheese!
Somehow, Vaughan does appear to have established a bridgehead between the adult world of law and order and the youth. Yet his first venture could hardly have given him much cause for optimism. No one knew quite what to expect when the police agreed to Vaughan's proposal for an amnesty, during which gang weapons could be handed in. But most of Easter House, reinforced by a small army of pressmen and photographers, came along to watch the fun. At first it looked as if nothing at all was going to happen. Then the weapons, that is what they were, began to arrive. It looked as if someone had been raiding the backyard of a hardware store. Even by the standards of the gangs, much of what was handed in appeared to come within the category of obsolescent. In the midst of it all, the police maintained a passive neutrality. As a social experiment, the proceedings had an odd carnival air, and although he has since become a trustee of the Youth Centre project, Glasgow's police convener, Bailey Anderson, was unimpressed.
Well, of course, this is a comic opera, nothing more, nothing less.
Why do you say that?
Well, I say this quite simply because speaking to some of the gang leaders this afternoon, they're just going along for the publicity, they're just taking people for a ride.
You believe that this is, if it's not done any good, do you believe it may have done harm?
Yes, I think it's done a great deal of harm because I think, quite frankly, that this has idolised the people who commit those crimes of violence, and those children see the gang leaders being idolised, being publicised, and of course I think those children will attempt to emulate those gang leaders who have attracted so much attention.
Mr. Anderson, if this isn't the answer, what is the answer to Glasgow's gang problem?
Well, we have found the problem by deterrent sentences in the High Court. Well, they have been ranging in the past week between 8 and 12 years imprisonment for attacks by an offensive weapon, and I think this is the real and the true answer. We must just simply, it's at the stage when we have to frighten people into good behaviour.
But aren't there, in fact, also, deep social reasons for this?
No, well, I don't see the deep social reasons for this, because we have got hundreds and thousands of good kids here in Easter House who live in the same housing conditions, who have the same educational opportunities, who have the same job prospects. They behave themselves. They are good citizens. So, you see, I cannot accept that.
Don't you accept what many sociologists and people like that say are the underlying causes of the gangs, the lack of a community spirit, the lack of a community life in the estates and things like that?
I don't accept this at all, not for 1 minute, because not all the gangs are centred in Easter House or in the vast housing estates. So let the sociologists explain why why gangs should not be in other areas of the city where there is a similar problem.
The children greet Frankie Vaughn as they would any pop singer, but the response of the teenagers has been more interesting and is of much greater importance.
The reason I came here today is that I wanted to meet as many of the lads and girls as possible, right? There's no point in me going over any plans unless you're all in on it. And you've seen
For the moment, he appears to have got through to them. In return for his promise to help raise money for a youth centre on the estate, the Easter House boys have agreed to give up their allegiance to the gangs. They've even scrubbed the slogans from the walls.
Things that you want to be involved with in the centre. For sport, there's badminton, tournament tennis, boxing ring, trampoline, 9 table tennis. Table tennis.
No one knows how long the truce will last, and even if the experiment is a success, it will not mean that the problem of Glasgow's violent teenagers has been solved overnight. But a new start has been made.
And of course you've got coffee areas and a place to dance, sort of discotheques.
But not all Glasgow's youth live in Easter House. For the Spur gang from the slums of Bridgeton, a trip to the hills is an escape. It is also a reminder that other social workers, less well known and less equipped to raise money, live with the problem of a bored and potentially violent youth every day. John Webster is a Church of Scotland minister, but there is little deference in the gang's attitude to him. He can promise them very little other than his friendship and the hope that he may persuade others to care.
What are you really trying to do with these lads? What's it all about?
It's a good question. What are they trying to do with me? You saw this just a minute ago, didn't you? To be friends, if you want the easiest angle. To try and show that someone cares in an impersonal, violent world. This sounds perhaps high-fluting. I think it's just a statement of fact. To show that someone cares. At school, fairly impersonal. Home life, fairly impersonal. Work, fairly impersonal. The street corner, the pub, the tote. The police, all impersonal. It has to be in many cases. Treat them as human beings. They'll respond.
Do you think that by doing this, though, you say they respond, do you in fact think that you can do anything to sort of lessen the violence of Glasgow?
I think so. I think if there was a lot of clubs like this, a big contribution could be made. We don't say we've the answer, but certainly the answer doesn't lie in pontificating from vacuums of inexperience. Letters to the papers. You know, get your MP, the councillor should do this, the police should do this. And the people who write these letters will not roll up their sleeves and get their hands in amongst it. If you know the boys as persons, then it seems there are redemptive possibilities.
What's a trip like this mean to them?
Well, I think you can see for yourselves. It's escape, you know? The police aren't here watching them. The local people aren't here. There's no one. They're just themselves. They can escape. They can be themselves. They can be rowdy. They won't be held for breach of the peace or anything like this. They're living here. Look, I mean, throwing stones around, cooking, putting a tent up. Complete escape. They wouldn't like to live up here, mind you. They're much happier living cheek by jowl in their own community, with flooded backcourts, with choked drains and this sort of thing. But here for a while they've escaped. The only way to do it is to get down amongst them. Bridgeton and other districts in Glasgow are leaderless communities because the professional people, they just bail out at night and the community reverts to time. There is no solution. We have no solution. But I think the nearest one can get to showing some kind of solution is to identify oneself, to care, to befriend, and you'll find that many of these boys, much maligned, are the salt of the earth.
Mr. Webster, you talk about this sort of professional exodus and the need perhaps for the letter writers and those who condemn to come in and help. But are there specific things that the government, that the Glasgow City Fathers can do?
I think do the same as your professional people might do, provided there is a little money available. Come in and befriend. People with cars can take 6 boys away for a weekend, skiing in the winter time, hill climbing in the summer. Get to know just a small group. Let them see, I think, that the cars that flash through daily, you know, that the professional people in them care, that the bosses at the work care. The old days, it was an awful lot to be said for it when you had the community village built round the factory. When bosses and workers, in their spare time, played on the bowling green, played elsewhere together, were seen in the pubs together.
Do you think there's much likelihood of this happening in
Not
Glasgow?
a hope, not a hope. And so you've no solution. The only solution is that somebody cares.
You're going to end up in Berlin if you go on like this, aren't you, Joe?
It's a good chance, yeah. Probably will come, you know. But, well, I mean, if it comes, you know. You don't fancy it, but you can't be helped, you know. You don't think you're getting to jail, but if you get jail, that's it.
What does the gang mean to you, Joe? How important is it in your life?
Doesn't mean Tom's. Doesn't bother. You know? Just that. There's nothing else to do, so... I mean, started running about for, you know, for a laugh, you know? Started running about with them. Then people get to know you. You get to know people and that. And that's it. You just got to keep going. Keep on going with them. Because you can't chuck it.
Yeah, when it's all said and done, Joe, you'd really like to get out of it, wouldn't you?
I'd like to go, but it's too late, man. Maybe if I mean, I'm good, I'll try, you know, stay away, but tried a couple of times. It's hard, you know.